That's when there'd been a nightmare, but on my street. Oh, I'm your DJ now, Freshie. Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies. Podcast where Matt and Todd go see a movie at our local Regal cinema, and then we talk about it in the parking lot, in the rain, in Matt's Honda Pilot, and we discuss the things like, should you see this in theaters? Should you not? Should you stream it? Can we endorse it? We try to answer all those important questions, and maybe a little bit more. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and yes, welcome to another episode where we're going to talk about a movie. And this episode, we're going to talk about a movie called Nightmare Alley. I was happy to hear your rendition of Nightmare on My Street.
my horrible rendition. Like every time we started the podcast, or like every time I thought about starting the song, I was like, I cannot do this line.
Well,
I tried.
DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince are probably owed $5 from you.
Man, that's $10
For
Unless,
that
are they
performance.
splitting
They're
the $5?
splitting it,
All right,
of course.
okay, $250.
Yep,
That's not bad.
They're a duo in this case.
I'm sorry, guys. I failed you.
Well, anyway, we saw the Academy Award nominated, Best Picture nominated movie, Nightmare Alley.
Yes.
And it was re-released in theaters. Our local Regal Cinema does this every year where they kind of have a schedule and show all the Best Picture movies that they have access to anyway.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple that are just on streaming that are not
Yes.
allowed or not given the option to show. So, but happy to watch another one before the Oscars, which I think are this weekend. I think maybe Sunday.
Let's be real. I'm not watching.
Fair enough. Well, we have seen a lot of the best pictures at this point, though, which I am
That's
happy
true.
about.
Well, especially since, okay, so the Oscars have cut like 7 categories of like that they're not gonna like televise, that they're just gonna like whatever, and it's like stuff like best makeup, like unsung heroes that need a night like the Oscars to sing their praises, and they're doing away with some of them just so they can get more time for like these freaking celebrities and directors. They get all the credit anyway. Like, you can't give it to little people for a 3-hour show or whatever. I'm anti-Oscars. I think it's a joke, and it's not worth anyone's time. But I like seeing the movies that are nominated just so I can tear them apart or praise them.
Fair enough. Well, to be fair, I'm probably not going to watch it either. But I will see who won. I enjoy that part of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll see the list. I'm not going to be happy with myself. I know you were itching to know my hot take on the Oscars. So
yes, I was. Thank you for sharing that. Well, back to this movie, Nightmare Alley. There are a ton of famous people in this movie. The main actor here is Bradley Cooper. He's the star of the show. He plays the main character. And then you've got plenty of people who are kind of supporting roles. You've got, why can't I think of the
Cate Blanchett?
Yes, thank you. That's who I was trying to think of. You've got Cate Blanchett, you've got Rooney Mara, Mara Rooney, excuse me.
When you said that, it didn't even click in my head, and then you fix yourself, and I was like, oh, well, I'm dumb.
Yeah, well, you've got Ron Perlman, who's in this. You've got Willem Dafoe is in this. Mary Steenburgen. Who'd I miss?
Toni Collette.
Toni Collette. Yes, thank you.
There's one other person who I recognize from a ton of stuff, but I can't remember their name, and it's not worth looking up. But definitely has been in a ton of movies. The guy who played Pete, the old man Pete.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember. Oh, and Richard Jenkins.
Okay.
He's been in a ton of stuff, too.
That old guy, it is somebody.
Oh, he's had a long career. Like,
yeah. Well, anyway.
A long career to end up being that guy.
That guy. That old guy. Well, maybe we'll correct that in a future podcast. Let's be honest. We will not.
No. And my phone's not even coming out of my pocket for me to do it now. So, sorry, that guy. We owe you $5 if you want to come on the podcast and collect.
And say your name.
Yeah.
I am that guy. I am. Okay.
Yes.
So, what is this movie about? Well, I mentioned Bradley Cooper is the main star of it, and he plays this kind of drifter character who joins up with a carnival. And I'll mention this is set in like the very late 30s, early 1940s.
Yeah. I think the movie starts in 39.
Yeah. Seems fair.
Yeah.
And so, but he connects with this like traveling carnival type thing, and kind of gets sucked into being a part of it and like helping people out and in the carnival, and some people take pity on him and some people help him, and he meets a couple who are doing like a mind reading act. It's not real mind reading. It's fake.
Mentalism? Is that what they call it?
Mentalism, yes. So he kind of learns the tricks of the trade from them, and in the meantime, he kind of connects with another act he connects with a woman. That's what I'm trying to say.
There it is.
Who's also in the carnival. And after some time, they agree to kind of not run away, but like leave the carnival
Split
together,
off.
right?
Yeah.
And they're gonna go away and do a mentalism act, kind of at like hotels and stuff, and travel around and make some money that way. So he takes what he's learned to do that, and then he ends up crossing some lines and kind of doing some more less mentalism, more like spirit medium type stuff, like trying to connect people. Not really, it's all fake. It's all he's grifting people. He's playing a game.
Which you was specifically warned that you never do. Like,
Right.
you never go that far or whatever.
Right.
And like any good movie, he does go
He
far.
does go that far, right? So that happens, and he also connects with this other woman who's like a psychiatrist, and she gives him some information about famous people in the town that they're in. I think they are in Buffalo for some reason, was what I pulled out of that, but
I have no idea.
yeah. Somewhere it snowed a lot.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
And so there's like that connection, and then there ends up being like this attraction to her, but he's also with his main girl, and so he starts to cross some of these lines with like famous people in the city, and really take them for a lot of money, and then there are twists, there are turns, and I won't tell you what happens, of course, but
Yeah. Twisty turns.
there are problems that arise from what he does, and he faces consequences.
Yes.
And that is where I'll leave that, and where I will ask you, Todd, what are your thoughts on Nightmare Alley?
And after we talk about it, we're gonna say whether or not it should have been nominated and stuff like that.
Sure.
Right? Okay. All right. I'm almost more excited to talk about that than the review of the movie. Okay, so I'm a big fan of Guillermo del Toro movies.
Yes. He wrote and directed.
He wrote and
produced
directed this, and I think aesthetically his movies are so pleasing to watch. Like sets are so good, lighting is good. Like everything as far as like what you're watching typically to me looks just grand. Like, and I like that. So huge props to him. As far as acting goes, I thought acting was pretty good, well in this movie. I thought people really delivered, which, I mean, when you have kind of like a big, semi A-list cast of people who've been around for a while, that's what you expect. So I thought the acting was really good. What am I trying to say? Practical effects, makeup, and all that kind of stuff is really good. There's some scenes where you're kind of shown some disgusting stuff, and it just looks good, which is kind of his specialty.
There's some head trauma in this. Warning,
Yes.
Ed.
There's a fair amount of head trauma in
Yes.
this movie, so Ed, don't watch this movie. And so, and the story's pretty engaging too. You're following this person who you don't have any history on, and the opening of the movie is Bradley Cooper pulling a body into the hole of a house and then lighting the house on fire. That's how the movie opens. And so you're kind of already hooked at the beginning of the movie as far as okay, well, we're off to the races here. What's going on? And so it's a nice kind of I'm into it. The story kind of brought me along and I was engaged. The biggest minus this movie, and this may fall under personal preferences, like most of my arguments do, is that I don't like being introduced to very interesting characters and then they just drop out of the movie. I don't like that. I like to have a somewhat of a conclusion for every character in the movie. And so, he comes up to this circus, he joins the circus, and then you're introduced to all these super interesting characters and stuff like that, and you start to learn more about them, and that's cool. But then, when they split off, when him and the girl split off to go kind of do their own thing, you don't ever see, you get one scene of them kind of coming to visit, and it's, real fast, and then that's it. You don't get the conclusion to those characters, and that just kind of personally bothers me. If the movie was so, exceptional that it makes me forget them and not care, that's the mark of a truly incredibly special movie. But this one was, I don't feel super incredibly special. I liked it, but I also was well, you introduced these characters and I'd like to know, what happened to them, basically. You just kind of don't know. So that's a pretty big minus to me, but I could see that not bothering the general public. So I'll see if it bothered you or not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this movie's about 2 hours, or a little over 2 hours, I think. And it was, at no point was I checking the time really to see, hey, where are we? I wasn't bored. I was intrigued the whole way. But I have this sneaking suspicion that I kind of think for Del Toro to make incredibly great movies, I don't necessarily think he should be writing and directing. I think leave it up to someone else to write and create a story and do all that kind of stuff. And then you build this incredible world that he's able to do. So, that's kind of, it's a give and take. I'm having a hard time deciding how much of a minus the kind of dropping off of characters is going to be for me. But in general, I was into the story. I wasn't glued to my seat, what's going to happen? But I was interested through the whole thing. At no point do I feel like I was out or lost or anything like that. And I thought the acting was really well. Obviously, the sets and the vision and everything I think were spectacular. And I think I would definitely say you should see this in theaters. You don't have the option anymore unless you come to our theater, or maybe there's a theater near you showing the movie. But I definitely think this movie should have been watched. I really wanted to see this movie when it came out. It just didn't match with us. So I'm glad I got to see it tonight, because I was considering watching it on HBO Max this weekend. So I'm glad I got to see it in theaters. And I think if you had the option, you should have. That option is pretty much gone at this point, so I'm building you up for something you can't accomplish. But I will say, I think this is a good movie. I think people should see it. It's a very interesting story. It's engaging. It's got, like I said, great acting. So I think I would endorse this movie on almost all platforms, except for I don't think little kids should watch this movie, and that's because it's not so like R-rated bad, but you know, little kids could probably steer away from this one. So I fully endorse it. I think people should see it. However you can, HBO Max. I know it's on HBO Max, so if you got that, go for it. Now the big question: should this have been nominated for Best Picture?
And should it win?
And should it win? So I think my answer to both of those questions is no. And it's like, this was an interesting movie, and I'll be thinking about it for, probably the next couple of days as I try to piece together everything, which is, kind of good. That's what you want for a movie. But I think we're going to have the same issue we had last time we watched, Belfast, like when we were talking about at the end, is that off the top of my head, I can think of two movies that I enjoyed better and thought were better movies that should have been nominated and not this movie. Which I will repeat them: Spider-Man No Way Home and Encanto. Like, I thought were better movies, and they're not nominated for Best Picture. And Encanto is for Best Animated Picture, but whatever. I think it's the Best Picture material. So I would say I really enjoyed this movie. It's good. Do I think it's a Best Picture? Like, picking the 10 best movies of this year, of this past year. I just can't say yes to that. Like, and it's hard because for people like you and me, we see so many movies, and it's not like I can name 10 movies off the top of my head and go, oh, well, these were much better. Like, but I have a couple, like, so yeah, no to the Oscars. I think but I do think what this should have been nominated for was Best Director. That's what I think this should have been nominated for. I don't think it's in that category, but because I think Del Toro's ability to handle original content and immerse you into the world is great. Like, I think that should...
It's based on a book, though.
Okay, well, still, though. Like, so I think his ability to build this world from a book, or his script, or whatever, was really great. Like, really phenomenal. And I think about other movies that are nominated for Best Director, or even Best Picture, like West Side Story, I think is nominated for both. And I'm like, well, why are we, like, nothing against Spielberg, but, like, why are we nominating a movie where a guy, kind of took what had already been done and kind of redid it, put his own kind of flash on it, but still, it's like, it's not original. Like, and this seems, as far as directing and set building and all that kind of stuff, is much more original, and it doesn't, it's nominated for Best Picture, which I think is a mistake. It should be Best Director. Unless it is nominated for Best Director, to which you can just forget everything I just said, I guess. So, but that's me. I like this movie. Best Picture, no. Best Director, yes. Everyone should see this movie, unless you're a little kid.
Unless you're a little kid.
Yeah. Matt?
I was trying to look up if this was nominated for Best Director, and I can tell you that it is not.
Okay, so good. Then everyone should go back and listen to what I just said.
Yes.
If you're in this part in the podcast, rewind it. Listen to what I just said, because now it's even spoken with more believable tone to it.
More authority.
Yeah, more authority. Thank you.
Yes. Great. Well, I think this was a very good movie. I agree with all of the things that you said about the good parts of it. I thought the story was quite good. The twisty turns were effective, and it wasn't quite a story that we've heard before. There were a lot of unique elements to it.
Sure.
That I think that's kind of what I want to see out of a movie these days. Is show me something a little new, a little different. And we do see a lot of movies.
Right.
So when I can say that, that's a big positive. And yeah, I really liked it. I think you should watch it. And I was not frustrated by the lack of appearance of the previous characters later in the film. I felt like there was an act change, and they were no longer in the mix. Although some of them popped up in a brief visit.
So, I certain something. What, to speak bad about Del Toro for a second, his act changes in this movie were so weird to me. Where it was like the fade to black on a circle was like an act change. Like, and I was like, "What? This was an interesting choice."
Yeah, it's kind of strange. I don't know what was going on there, but yeah. So that didn't bother me in particular. And I thought like you said, I thought the acting was good. I thought the cinematography great, sets great. Everything had that feel of, that World War II kind of vibe to it, which was cool. So, do I think this should have been a Best Picture nominee? Yes, I do think that. And I know that my methodology with answering that question is different than yours. Because you say...
You explained it last time.
Yes.
Explain it again, because I don't remember.
You say, was this one of the 10 best movies of the year? And I say... What's the list of nominees? And should this be on the nominee list?
Based off of what's already on the list.
Based on what's on the list, is it better or worse than those movies? And if it's gonna win, then I think it's better than all the ones that I've seen. Right?
Sure.
So, I agree with you about Spider-Man and Encanto. But I would say, yes, I would have put this on the top 10 movies of last year.
I probably said this the last time you said your system, but maybe I should switch to your system.
Well, if we're talking about the nominated films, I feel like it's a good system.
Because I feel like the biggest flaw in my system is that someone could be like, well, what 10 movies should have been nominated?
Right.
And I'm like... For a guy who sees a movie a week, like and plus sometimes I'm like I can't remember. Like,
right. It's hard to remember. Do I think this will win Best Picture? I don't think it's going to.
No, I don't. I definitely don't think.
I wouldn't be completely surprised if it did, but I think we're probably going to see a movie like Belfast or a movie like West Side Story, which I haven't seen. Unfortunately, I would like to see it. But
I'll be honest, I tried to watch it and I turned it off. And it's not because it was like super bad or anything. I just was like, we've been here. Like, as I'm watching it, I'm like, we've been here, we've done this. Like, I've seen this movie before, and it seems like most things are just doing like, it's a little bit more colorful and it's a little bit more vibrant. But I'm like, there's not that much of an upgrade from the original. And that, to me, I don't know why we're celebrating that, like, by giving them awards for that. Like, also, the guy who plays Tony, whatever his name is, the guy who's in Baby Driver and stuff, is god-awful in that movie. And I've liked him in most of the stuff he's in, but it's just, I just had a hard time with it. But that's my own personal vendetta against West Side Story.
Sure.
And the Oscars in general.
Yes. Todd Vendetta Dover on the scene tonight. Well, but yeah, I really like this movie. And would I say it was the best movie of the year? That's another question. Would I say it was the best movie? No, I don't think it was. I think the best movie I saw was Spider-Man last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. Like,
yeah.
And I get it, because Spider-Man had 8 movies to build up to it, like
right.
But also, So what?
Right. West Side Story was a remake.
Yeah, exactly.
Using the same story.
Yes.
I mean, why not Spider-Man, which is a new thing?
Right.
But anyway, enough of that. And this ends my useless monologue. And
oh, it's not useless, Matt. Don't ever say that.
Thanks.
Well, how many? I'm just going to go with my original thought. How many gunshots to the ear would you give this movie?
Gunshots to the ear.
Well, obviously, 0 being the worst, because then you have no injuries and no one cares. And no one, then you're just a regular old schlub on the street.
Right.
Obviously, 5 being the best, because then you get a whole group of people being like, how's this guy got 5 times shot in the ear? Like, that's an amazing story. I want to hear that. You got people listening to you for the rest of your life.
His ears flapping in the wind.
Flapping and all that good stuff.
Yes. So I am going to give this a pretty good score because I thought it was a pretty good movie. So I'm going to give this a 4.1 gunshots to the ear out of 5, which is an excellent score. But
absolutely.
I think it was a pretty good movie. So...
my score, based off of all the good and the bad that I've already said, and then also one kind of negative that I forgot to talk about, but luckily for our listeners, I remembered.
Good.
Is one of the twisty turns I thought was a great twisty turn, but they don't explain it enough to understand why the person had a twisty turn.
Why the person did the thing.
Yes. And that kind of sat poorly with me, because there's like several different angles that you could jump to, but without being more led to one or the other, I don't like that ambiguity. Like, I'm like, I like to figure stuff out, and I like to find the hidden meaning, but you got to give enough information that the hidden meaning's there. Like, and I don't think that happened. You're just kind of left like, So, but that being said, my score is going to be a 3.9.
Okay.
So,
well,
also talking about Best Picture and movies that have come out this last year. Let's just for argument's sake, after we saw Rocky IV, the director's cut, I can't remember what our scores were, but I don't think they were as good as this one. Like, certainly I don't think yours was.
Rocky IV director's cut?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can Rocky IV be nominated for Best Picture if it's a director's cut with a re-release? Like, I don't know the rules. If we can take an old movie and just basically redo it, and that can be nominated for Best Picture, then why not a director's cut? It's almost like it's a re-edited cut of the movie. What are your thoughts?
I don't know what the real answer is, but I would say no. Don't allow such things.
I would love to live in a world where Rocky IV in 2022 got nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah. I mean, then I feel like that opens the door to like, oh well, here's Star Wars, the
re-edited,
the funky robot edition, and that could win Best Picture.
Well, they should just make a category of best reboot or something, since that's all the craze. Like, why not just create a category that's like best redone movie?
Right.
We're not going to give you the full credit of doing a movie on your own, because you basically just took another movie and redid it.
Right. Take that, Steven Spielberg.
Yes, Steven. I mean, I like your movies. I just feel like I don't like all the praise that West Side Story is given, because it's not original.
Right. Well, before I wrap things up, I just want to give a little view into the environment in the theater as we watch this movie tonight.
Yeah.
It wasn't the best.
Yeah.
There were 3 other people in the theater with Todd and I. And one of them was shouting things out and really interacting with the movie quite a lot. And that's something that happens sometimes, and some people are more prone to do that than other people. And I think this particular gentleman was very prone to do that.
Yes.
I think we've been in a movie with him before, actually.
Really?
I think we have.
Probably. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it makes it so awkward because the guy, he could have been mentally handicapped. Like that's what makes it so awkward to me. Like I'm judging this person. I'm like, man, shut up. Like, but then also I'm like, oh, I mean, he can't shut up. Like, I don't like.
Right.
It makes me feel like I'm like, oh, am I a bad person?
Yeah.
Like, but apparently, so when we got out of our seats in the theater, our seats, just our two seats that we were sitting in, would not decline, or like they wouldn't go back. And the guy was nice enough to run up and fix it for us, even though we didn't care. So but he also sat in the very front row and yelled out many things during the movie. So
Yep.
It was a weird experience.
So yeah, that was weird. And then there were two other people who were sitting next to us who really had some heavy sinus problems and were borderline like snoring and snorting and things just to my left. So
I like how also it was basically an empty theater and we ended up sitting 3 seats away from the other 2 people.
Yes.
Mistakes were made.
But anyway, it's not always a great time to be at the movies. But we suffer through to give you what you want. So, with that, that's going to wrap up this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we review Nightmare Alley. And we gave it an average score of 4 shots to the ear out of 5, which is a very good score for us.
True.
Nice and high. So I think we're in consensus when we both say you should see this movie unless you're a little kid.
Or you're Ed.
Or you're Ed, our friend Ed, who has problems with head trauma and doesn't like that in movies. But he does like movies. So thank you for listening, all listeners. Thank you for downloading. Please continue to download, and we will see you next time.
Da 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 da.